1 second. Okay, YouTube stream is in, but 2 public members are still saying joining. Give them, I guess. I guess it's, oh, there's Kirsten. All right. She's still joining. It's lagging a bit. There you go. She's in. We can start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 6 p.m. I would also like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can I have a roll call?
Yes, Director Aguilar.
Here.
Director Topliff is not here. Director Brandt.
Here.
Director Freeman.
Here.
Dr. Craig.
Here.
Dr. Dashler.
Here.
Thank you. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Aniscoyo, the land that Ilivus sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue the tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Okay, Ross, I believe you have an announcement.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to note for members of the public and for the recording in the YouTube stream that this meeting is being held via Zoom. This is allowable under Government Code Section 54954E, which is due to the flooding and the related emergency circumstances in and around the district. That provision reads as follows, as soon as I pull it back up. Okay, Government Code Section 54954, subsection E. If by reason of fire, flood, earthquake, or other emergency, it shall be unsafe to meet in the place designated on the agenda, the meeting shall be held for the duration of the emergency at the place designated by the presiding officer of the legislative body or his or her designee, in a notice of local media that have requested notice pursuant to Section 54956 by the most rapid means of communication available at the time. Just note that the district, through the general manager's office, sent out a notification to the public, which includes media representatives this morning at 7:40 a.m. Via an email notification. So the notification requirements of 54954 subsection E have been satisfied. The meeting will be held for the duration of the emergency, and it sounds like it's in the process of being abated. So it looks like the next meeting, including committee meetings that are subject to the Brown Act, will be meeting as regularly as they regularly do. That concludes my announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Dr. Tyler,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded, Director Brandt. Can we have a roll call?
Director Brandt.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Dashler.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now we will move on to the public comment period. Item 3, at this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board of directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Do any members of the public have any public comments?
No raised hands.
All right, don't see any here. Okay, let's move on to our discussion action items. Item 4.1, IVCSD board vacancy. Jonathan, can you go ahead?
Yes, let me get the screen shared for you all. All right. This is a report on the vacancy of the board that was left by Director Bertrand's resignation that happened on December 13th. It had previously said 14th, but it was 2 minutes before the 14th. So we're counting it on the 13th. So he resigned to take office as a Goleta Union School Board member. And so we now must go through the process of filling that vacancy. The board has two options, appointment or election. For the last vacancy that occurred, the board chose to do appointment. And the process that's below is the same process that was used in 2019. Either way, whichever method is used, the person, since it was more than halfway through the term, the new person will serve through the remainder of the term, and the seat will be up for election regardless in 2024 in the election. If the board chooses to do an appointment, this is the timeline right here. We have 60 days from December 13th, which is February 11th, to make a decision. The timeline we set out is very similar in amount of time that was provided last time. So there'd be a little less than a month to submit applications, which is resume and letter of interest. We would publish it on our website, social media, to the press, in physical locations, saying that there will be an appointment, that the due date and when the date of the interviews and selection will happen. The board can create an ad hoc committee to prepare interview questions and process, or we could just use the ones from last year, or we could just have an ad hoc to review that and make sure those are good to go. But we put February 7th, since the regular meeting in February is actually after the 11th, it's on the 14th. That's just when the second Tuesday is. We'd need to have a special meeting for the appointment. And then for an election, we would call for an election, and that would, the elections code provides preset dates for when elections can happen. In an odd year, the dates are only March and November, and we don't have enough time to do the March date. We have to call it 130 days before the election would be, and it's too late. And so November would be when there would be a vacancy until November, and then the person would take office immediately once the results were certified. But we would have to pay the entire cost of the election, which I couldn't give you a direct quote of what it would be, but from what I've heard for Isla Vista special elections in the past, they could be more than $20,000. We've paid $10,000 for having one thing on the ballot in the past, in that being a shared election. So it would be expensive, but it is an option. So the board today can decide to do election or appointment. And if appointment, if this timeline works for you, we will get the information out ASAP. It's already ready to get the information out from last time. We have all the materials and language still ready to go. So we would be able to push it out quickly. That's it.
All right, thank you for that. Do any directors have any questions? Director Topliff.
Mine's not really a question. I just think in terms of filling the vacancy more expediently and saving money, that we should definitely go the appointment route. And I also like the idea of having an ad hoc committee to get us ready with good questions.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Any board members? Well, yeah, I'll jump in real quick and just say, Carrie, I definitely am kind of leaning in your direction, like those ideas. Yeah. No questions from the board right now? None. Okay, let's go to the public. Do the public have any questions or comments? All right, see no questions or comments from the public. Well, yeah, if there's anything, Spencer, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to voice my agreement that it's untenable for us to wait an entire calendar year to fill this vacancy. And I think that in a roundabout way, it's more democratic for there to be a group of elected officials that are accountable, that interview, that have a thorough public process for vetting who would be appointed to the board, rather than having an election where it's going to be super low turnout and it's only going to be like the super high propensity voters voting. I work in other counties where there's a special election going on right now. We expect that less than 1,000 voters out of a city of 200,000 people are going to decide a city council election. Like, that's not democratic. I think it's much better for us to just go the appointment route. And I also, what this memo highlighted for me is that we don't have this enshrined in policy. I would recommend that we maybe have policy committee take a look at just creating a policy. I know the city of Santa Barbara did something like that recently when they had kind of the procedures they'd been using to fill vacancies, but then they had to change them. And so they ended up having an ordinance that actually went for the voters. We probably don't have to do that, but it would be good to have in policy what our appointment procedure is when there's a vacancy. And thankfully, we haven't really had to come up against this that often. This is only our second chance or time that that's happened, because we've got a great board that's super committed. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking a lot in those lines of just the efficiency and also making sure that we stay on top of giving our public the opportunity to have a full board. All right, I see your hand is raised. Henry, I'll jump back into the public comments and questions. Go ahead.
My apologies for that. I was trying to find a reaction thing and kind of clumsy on Zoom. So my apologies for the delayed. In fact, I'll lower my hand right now. First of all, an appointment is a great idea. Like you said, it comes out of very capable hands to make that decision. And you can shape the questions to be asked to the candidate. So this is a fantastic thing. Also, the cost saving. I was talking to one of my friends, and they said an election could cost anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, depending, the extent of the election. And the other facet being that, the last election we had 791 ballots in a community of 22,500, 25,000 people. It wouldn't gain that much. An election, I don't know, it'd just be a lot of money for very little response. So I think that the appointment route is the most viable. And it is democratic, as Director Spencer has said. Director Brandt had mentioned. It's democratic. It falls within the guidelines of the entity in charge. So that's basically my thoughts on it. And also, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone too. Great start to the new year with all this rain and everything. So but that's it. Thank you for hearing me out on that.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I don't see any other members of the public jumping up with their hands or anything. I'll go back to the board. Does the board have any further comments or questions? None. Okay. Well, do we have a motion? Director Topliff.
I'll make a motion to appoint a new director to fill the vacant seat on the timeline that Jonathan laid out for us, and also to have an ad hoc committee to create the questions and get us ready for that process.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All right. Thank you. All right, I'll go back to the public real quick before we take a roll call. Does the public have any comments on this motion? Seeing none. Okay. Are there any directors? No. All right. Jonathan, can I have a roll call?
Yes. Director Brandt,
Yes.
Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Craig,
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Topliff,
Yes.
Dr. Deschler.
He disconnected right before the vote.
Looks
Sorry.
like he dropped off. Yeah,
Yes.
we can call her vote when she gets back.
Okay, well, motion passes. Let's move on to item 4.2, letter to the supervisor on coastal zone ordinance amendment.
Okay, let me get the screen shared. So this has been a topic of discussion at our board before. We've had different times where we've brought up, what could we do more to support this effort? At the last Isla Vista Community Network meeting, or let me rewind. At the last Isla Vista Safe meeting that was hosted in Isla Vista, there was discussion about bluff top and cliff safety, and there have been several meetings around that we have participated in around what can be done in terms of with the current resources and what are the needs in the future to make more change. So throughout all of that, we learned that our county supervisor's office, formerly HART, now CAPS, has been very supportive of making a change to our coastal zoning ordinance so that we would require a coastal development permit instead of a minor conditional use permit in order for private property owners to put up fences higher than 6 feet near the bluffs. That's been an impediment that's always been brought up in terms of higher fencing, is that the minor conditional use permit process is really cumbersome. And so that's been a hindrance to getting better fencing in the private property areas. So by doing this, it would make it an easier process for private property owners to, it doesn't compel them to, but it makes it, there's less red tape involved in it. So at the last Isla Vista Community Network meeting, Supervisor Capps did make a request of the Community Services District to consider a letter of support for this plan. And essentially what we're doing is showing, by passing this, we'd be helping the supervisor display that there's local support for this effort. There's going to be a county process and a coastal commission process involved in this. And so it's helpful in these kinds of things to have the local community, through an elected body like this, display support. So that's why the request was made of us, and it's on your agenda here. We can answer some questions. If some of the questions might be complex, we might have to check in on them, but we're using all the information we've received from the county supervisor's office so far. So.
Awesome. Thank you for that description, Jonathan. Do any board members have any questions? Director Freeman.
I'm curious. I'm sorry, I was looking at the screen sharing just as on a delayed thing, just as it disappeared. So the term I had I'm curious what the requirements are on the minor conditional use permit. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, it's hard for me to fully explain and understand, since I don't have a background in planning and development, but it's from what I've looked at the coastal zoning ordinance, and it does just seem like it's just a more detailed process. So there's just more hoops to jump through. I couldn't tell you exactly what those are, though. We can get that information before you guys.
Are there any other questions from the board? All right, I see no questions from the board. I'll move into public comment. Does anyone have any public comments on this item? Henry, go ahead.
Hi again, guys. Jonathan and Spencer and I were discussing just before the holidays one alternative method of, and I believe Director Brandt labeled it a hostile horticulture, and that is the use of certain plants to avoid people from approaching the bluffs. These would be bougainvillea and Nepalese cactus, and they offer a root structure to keep the cliffs pretty intact. It's not going to be this save all. It's not going to fix everything with the cliffs, but one of the things is you can put that fence up there. These property managers or property owners can put the fence up, but the problem is you're still going to have people jumping over the thing to get a better view of the ocean and things like that. It's not just a fence that's going to have to work. You're going to have to put something behind it to make it unpleasant to go back there. And all my years of dealing with people and plants, I can tell you, no one, I don't care what their condition is, no one wants to deal with a spiny plant. So it's just something to consider along with that, and also furthers aesthetics as well. And on an environmental point of view, the Nepalids, they offer food towards the natural the local wildlife, and it's even edible by humans. So something to consider. I'm not saying it's a fix-all, but it's something to consider as well, along with a fence, and making the permit process easier for people to install these fences, and possibly this horticulture would definitely be a step in the right direction for the community. That's it.
Thank you. Do any other members of the public have any comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Does the board have any commentary on this item? You can see some folks reading.
I'm happy to start. Well, I just really want to say a big thank you to you, Marcos, and for Jonathan and our staff for putting this letter together. I think it really succinctly captures the issue. We didn't know when we first started these discussions that we'd be considering this in a very timely way, considering the huge winter storm that we just experienced. And I know many of us on the board have been sort of watching nervously about what that would mean for coastal erosion. I saw some photos of one of the sea caves that did end up collapsing, and luckily it was not near any housing units, and was more in the park area, and no one was hurt. But I mean, every single time that these big storms happened, we hold our breath. In 2017, we got really lucky that there was no one standing in the area where there was that 15 feet bluff failure that took away a huge amount of a patio. And we have certain property owners that are trying to be a part of the solution, that are trying to put up fencing that is non-scalable, that is higher, that have agreed to help put up signage to try to dissuade people from staying or from going near those cliffs, but they have not been able to because of the red tape. So I'm really happy. I think that the county understands these frustrations, and Supervisor Capps wants to be a champion to try to address these issues. I think we should all be champions for trying to address these issues. And I'll just end by saying that there's a reference in there to Dana Point. I went on a trip there recently, last summer, and saw what some of this really high fencing adjacent to coastal bluffs looks like that they have there. This is fencing that you can tell has been recently installed because it's new housing units, and it's a lot higher. It's also made out of plexiglass. It's a material that's not easily climbable or scalable, and it's also the least intrusive aesthetically possible. Because it's not a fence, you can see through it. So I think there's a lot of room for us to see what we can do, to make it easier for property owners to be a part of the solution. So I will be enthusiastically supporting this.
Thank you for those comments, Director Brandt. Any other board members have any commentary? Right, I don't see any, but I just want to, express my gratitude that the letter is clear and short, and it does, put more burden onto the property owners to be taking care of their land and the homes that they're sharing with all the Isle of Us residents. It's not really, compelling people to make a fence, but instead empowers the property owners to make a safer fence, which safety has always been our goal as a district. And I'm really happy that this letter conveys that. Do I have a motion on this letter? Director Topliff.
I'll move to send this letter.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second.
All right. Can I have a roll call?
Can I ask one more thing too? Can we CC our coastal commissioner on this?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
That's an excellent idea. Do the motion makers and seconders. All right. Thank you. All right. Do we have a roll call?
Yes, let me just writing. I was writing that CCN. Director Brandt,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Topliff,
Yes.
Dr. Deschler.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Motion passes. We're gonna send off that letter. Now let's move on to item 4.3, the budget process timeline.
Right. So budget process timeline, very similar document format as the past, but I tried to make it a little improved this year and a little more clear. At the beginning is our objectives, the same objective we've always had for our budget process, which is open and transparent and engaging, and an annual review of everything we do. Here's the list. There's 27 different items, agenda discussions, deliverables that we're gonna do through this process. It's probably a little more than that, but these between the actual community engagement work we'll do on top of this. But that's the number of different discussions and items we'll be producing between now and August to get our budget done. For those of you who remember, we do a process where we look at the program's annual review, and it's the proposed next steps for the next year. We then have the finance committee do a more in-depth review of that with the board's discussion and direction in mind. And then the finance committee puts together what the draft budget for that program should be next year based on all of that. And then the board reviews that draft budget, consents to it or has some consensus. And then that draft budget is slotted into the larger budget document, and it all comes together into one document by the end. So it is a longer process with a lot of steps, but the hope is that it makes it smooths it out so that we are giving everything also the time that is due to make good decisions about it. So we're going to start off the process with a financial update to look at how this year has gone now that we're at the midway point of the fiscal year from July through December. So we'll look at a financial update, and then we'll do the compost collective first, since that's already been the one that's furthest along and working on our review of the program and what the next steps could be. One thing that's new this year is from the policies we've passed is that we would be looking at the COLA for our employees. We would do that in February, March, and it would, whatever the board decides, this COLA would go into effect in the next budget, but we would make the determination at that point so that we can take the calculation into account for the budget. So that's new. Rental housing mediation programs next. Internal operations, which actually has never had an annual report, so we'll be doing the first one this year. Community spaces, you already kind of got an annual report from Maya in December, but we'll just repackage some of that information and talk about the next steps for the community center or community spaces. We'll have a retreat in late February to late March. It's going to have to be after the 7th when we'll have our new board member, and then we'll take some time to have them integrated and scheduled to have a retreat. March, we'll continue with community engagement. We'll be able to start reviewing some budgets by March, like our internal budget, our operations, community programs, housing. By March 28th is usually where we've done a lot of our financial analysis work through the finance committee, which is looking at the estimated actuals for the year, looking at the budget projections for the next year, for the things we already know that we're like the status quo spending that we're going to have. We'll have our community engagement work prepared, which takes place in the spring mainly. And then we'd start looking at some projections. And by then, the board has already had its retreat, and we have some new goals that are being discussed. And we've had some time to analyze our resources, which I didn't list what will happen in the retreat, but it's, things we usually do, which is looking at our resources, looking at our spending, looking at our organization, and making adjustments. April, May is our community engagement process, which Sydney is going to be majorly revamping and improving this year, since it's her first year with a full year to work on it. We go into public safety, into continuing staff pay, our garden, community festivals. And then by June, we will have most of the budget done at that point. We'll get a preliminary budget passed by the board on the 27th. And then we'll have July and August to make revisions based on the final actual numbers, and then pass the final budget August 22nd. And this year budget cycle is what I explained at the beginning in terms of the logic of an annual report, finance committee, budget review, and then back into the main budget. So similar to before, but with some improvements to the format and flow of things this year. And obviously, some of these things always happen where an outside presenter or even our internal staff presenters might not be able to make one of these dates, and so we'll have to be flexible with this, and we'll announce those changes at board meetings as they come. So I wanted to get some direction, and then we'll have our first finance committee meeting soonish, and we'll start more directly grappling with all this.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Dr. Topliff.
What a great job you did, Jonathan. That's a very complicated to-do list that you set out, and you did, I think, a really good job putting the schedule together too. So as the chair of the finance committee, I am looking forward to implementing your plan, and also to welcoming Olivia to the committee. And I did reach out, and I hope that we can have a chance to spend a little time together, and I'm happy to orient you to some of the documents that we look at and how to read them.
Yes, thank you so much, Carrie. Did you email me? I did not send that.
Your email wasn't working yet.
Oh, okay. That
So
makes sense.
we'll get it together.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, are there any questions from the board?
This is Kirsten. I have a question, please. Sorry, I'm having computer issues, so I'm on my phone. I wanted to ask a question. It seems that throughout the year, sometimes we get individual community members or people from programs making requests of the IVCSD, and I wonder if those can be aggregated and considered as part of this process. I imagine that they are, but sometimes we have one-offs where people are making requests of us that are funding related. So I just want to make sure we capture those requests from the previous year that didn't fit into our normal budget process.
Yeah, great point. We do have those handy, and all our staff definitely are keeping track of the new ideas that we'd love to do but aren't currently funded for in this current budget. And so it'll be a feature of all their reports, which is the ideas for next year. So
yeah, that's an excellent point, Director Deschler. All right, do I have any other questions from the board? Seeing none, okay, I'll go over to the public. Is there any public questions or commentary? All right, don't see any questions or commentary. I'll bring it back to the board. Any last thoughts? Do I have a motion? Director Topliff.
I'll make that motion to adopt this schedule and go forward to have a good and productive fiscal plan.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
seconded by Brandt. Okay, Jonathan, can I please have a roll call?
Dr. Brandt,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
Deschler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, now let's move on to item 5, our reports. Do any members of the board have reports? Director Deschler.
This isn't actually a report, but I just want to say that had I been present on the first vote, I would like to say that I would have definitely voted in favor of having an appointed process for an election. That's all.
Thank you.
And
Director
Jonathan
Brandt.
had explicitly left it open, so.
Yeah, I just added your vote to yes.
Thank you. All right, Director Brandt.
Thanks. I just wanted to give a lot of praise to Sydney and our staff for putting together the wonderful education campaign that, again, was very, very timely about bluff and cliff safety in advance of the winter storm. They've done a lot of great outreach on social media that seems to have gotten a lot of clicks, a lot of views, a lot of attention. And it has been really educational, especially for residents living on Oceanside DP, letting them know about the hazardous conditions on the bluff and helping spread information about the storm as it was coming in, as we were getting information from the county and other sources. So I just really wanted to say great job being great communicators.
Director Freeman.
I would like to second that. At the beginning of 2017, I had this exciting idea to put together a bunch of social media stuff about the cliff erosion. And in the process of putting together the materials for that, I managed to get swept into the ocean and then had ended up in the emergency room from a giant gash on my hand from my umbrella that I had and seeing that, oh, there's now a government that's doing this and they've got great material. It made me very happy to see. So.
Director Topliff.
I just wanted to note that I typically attend the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District meeting as our representative, and they're meeting this Thursday at 5:30, and I'll be out of town, and I don't believe I'll be able to attend. So usually I take opportunity of the 3-minute announcement slot to just give a little brief information about what we're doing over here. And then I pay attention to the meeting and bring back information to us. So if anybody else is available to do that, it's a fun gig.
Right. Are there any immediate volunteers to jump in at the Parks meeting as our ears and voice? Director Deschler? All right. Thank you. We appreciate it. Any other reports from the board? All right. Well, yeah, I'll jump in and say I'm very proud of the bluff erosion campaign. And as I try and navigate my new role as president, I don't have too many reports yet, but I do want to piggyback on the safety issue of the bluff. As an ocean goer and a surfer, I was really happy to not see anywhere near the amount of rescues that we have had in the past due to large swell events, rain events, or general excitement. And maybe part of that has to do with that Isla Vista was not fully populated during the first of our intense storms, but looks like today that people were mostly following protocol, and I'm really proud of Isla Vista for actually being safe. And I heard from a county posting and press release that overnight, by sometime this morning, there weren't any big rescues due to the rain. There were some rescues, but not any missing persons or any serious injuries or losses of life. And I was really happy to hear about that also. And yeah, that's about all I have to comment on. It's the most interesting thing happening to all of us right now. I'm sure more than one of us here is dealing with a rain leak in their own home, but that's just kind of IV. I got a shop vac right next to me, ready to be turned on when we're done here. Yeah. All right.
It's an
Report-
SB too. The rain leaks at home.
Oh, yes. Are there any reports from standing and ad hoc committees? All right. There was a mention earlier of the policy committee and, what we can do about possibly solidifying a policy for this, for the appointment and or election due to board vacancy issue. And I do think that is something interesting that we should look into as a committee. So hopefully we can make some time for that. But I see no other reports from standing or ad hoc committees. So I'll move on to reports from district council.
Thank you, President Aguilar. Just two items to report on briefly. One is over the course of the past couple of years, we've been reporting on the various Cal OSHA requirements and regulations with respect to COVID. OSHA did come out with a draft non-emergency COVID regulations, kind of recognizing the change from a pandemic to endemic status of the virus. Those have been finalized, and once they are submitted to the Secretary of State, which has to happen by the end of January, they will go into effect. The biggest item is that employers no longer have to provide what had been called exclusion pay. So while exposed and away from the workplace, employees were provided pay while they were taking that time off. Moving forward, employees have to use accumulated sick pay or other paid time off. So that will be coming into effect no later than the end of January. More as an informational item, I just wrote on behalf of my firm a client alert with respect to SB 972. I know that a number of the board members are active in watching legislation, and you may already know about this, but essentially this removes some of the barriers to operating small vending carts, sidewalk vending, especially for food. If you've seen those carts around, some people find them to be an annoyance. Other people see them as a way to empower people to start their own business and to provide food at a low cost. So there are a number of regulations that SB 972 implemented. Some of the big ones are changing the requirements and changing the equipment specifications to allow more small vendors to operate. So it makes it a little bit easier. Also, the law removed criminal penalties for violation for certain violations of the retail food code. So that's being seen as removing another barrier to access, and also changed some of the ways that local governments can license those smaller establishments. And it also makes it easier for small kitchens and cottage food industries to support those vendors. So it's a continuation of the sidewalk vending changes that occurred a couple of years ago. And it's just another way that the legislature is reacting to conditions to allow for these smaller food preparers and vendors of non-perishable foods to be able to sustain themselves and to provide another outlet for food and other items in their communities. So just an item of interest, since the district doesn't have a local land use authority, but I figured that would be interesting to the district and to members of the district's public. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'll move on to report from our general manager.
All right, so I'm going to be doing some others reports too today. And we're actually going to I'm going to make some revisions to how we do my report, just so I can get some more voices involved in what's going on in the district. As you've seen already in the last couple of months, we make some changes, but Sydney couldn't make it today. So I will report that, yes, she has launched her cliff erosion and safety campaign, and It is something we're doing in partnership with Community Housing Office at UCSB and Associated Students. The info is going to be shared bi-monthly on social media and in our newsletter. The first post yesterday that you all saw was cliff erosion through the years, the science behind it, and precautions people can take, like calling the county's building inspector if they need help. And just for the data on where the post went, it reached 2,000 people, got 300 likes, and was shared 146 times in about 24 hours, or a little more than 24 hours. So it was a great post by us. And, like Director Freeman said, I had a conversation with Sydney about it. I really like us as IVCSD with the information like this that we're putting out. Is there's a lot of non-definitive sources about Isla Vista, or just no sources about Isla Vista. And so we can act as one of those local community-based definitive sources of information on these big topics that we all experience in everyday life here. So yes, we're going to do that. And that's starting with this one, in this campaign. For Compost Collective, we're going to send you an FAQ kind of document tomorrow, just as a preview to the annual report that Carly's been working on. So look forward to that. Jenna is here. I don't know if Jenna, if you want to mention anything. Sydney had sent me a couple points from you, which is that you're going to be doing a graffiti abatement that's been building up, and the lighting walk by staff is going to be happening soon. And Jenna and I also had a great meeting with Adopt a Block and at IVRPD earlier this week to learn more about what they're doing. So we're getting involved with them. Jenna, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to mention.
No, that is pretty much it. My workers were on vacation for the past couple weeks, and with the rain, we haven't really been able to get out there, but we're ready to get back out there and take control of the graffiti again.
Right. Thank you, Jenna. I have an exciting announcement to make. I think I might have sent a quick note about it before I went off for vacation in December, but we are working with UCPD and Hillel to finalize and launch the third location for the safety stations later this quarter. It's because of staffing issues, it won't be able to happen until later in the quarter, but they're just ramping up CSO. So once that's fully staffed, we'll be able to launch there. But yeah, that's progress made. It's been a goal of ours for a little bit now to get a third location launched. Housing mediation, I'll just mention we've continued to have a steady stream of users around the cliff erosion as well. People calling us to ask about what could be done for their situation through that. So that's been good. News on community center. So yoga, the weekly yoga that we provide, free yoga for an hour in the evening, has been moved from Mondays to Thursdays at 8:15 p.m. at the community center. And one exciting new event that Maya is putting together is on January 28th, we are partnering with Santa Barbara Artworks to host an art gallery opening and have live jazz at the community center from 4 to 7 p.m. And so it's Santa Barbara Artworks is an art studio whose mission is helping adults with disabilities create, show, and sell their artwork. So we'll have that, look forward to that on the 28th. Though one issue to bring up about the community center, just so you're all aware, is I did go in today, the rain, to check out the building and see how it's holding up with the rain. We're good to go at 970 at the community room and our office. No leaks that I found or heard about from the other tenants, but at the community center, we're still seeing the leaks under the garage door. Obviously, nothing has been done to change that yet, but it was pretty bad this time, obviously, because of the large amount of rain. So just something to note, that's still needs to be fixed. On the STEP grant, Sydney and Fiona and I mentioned this last time, but it's continuing. We're still working on doing our parts of revising the reports that are due to us. We're taking what K2A has finished, and now we're going to be working ourselves to fill in the gaps and complete some portions that we find important. One thing to know is we've been invited as IVCSD to participate in a regional bike share application that might go out to the Clean Mobility Options Program with the City of Goleta, City of Santa Barbara, UCSB, and others to apply for a regional bike share application. So we're just going to keep attending those meetings, and if there's anything for the board to take action on, we'll bring it back, but just giving you a heads up. On parking, I'm hoping to meet with Chuck Haynes at UCSB soon to finalize funding from that. So keep an eye out for an update there. On community festivals, we did let IVRPD know our interest in working with them. We're still waiting to hear from them, their direction, but we did make that known that we were gonna, what the board action was 2 meetings ago, which was to follow their lead, and so we let them know about that. For the retreat, I had mentioned, late February into March, so we can accommodate the new person. But if you have now things that you want to know about more on the district that you think everyone else would want to also know about, just so you can make the best decisions possible about our future. And so let me know so I can start compiling information. You can look back to last year's retreat. I can send an email with that. But we do a lot of things of looking where time is spent for staff. So we're going to do that kind of thing again. We had an org chart. We had kind of a little chart about each program and compare and contrast what they all do. So you can get a full view look. But yeah, if there's anything you want to know specifically or things that were missing last year, let me know. One couple last things, we are starting our budget process now, and we are waiting to hear back from our auditors about our 21-22 audit. We've left a message asking to schedule that, so we're hoping to get that done. We're ready on our side, but we have to have them come in. Director Brandt and I, we attended right before the break, attended the grand opening of the new pharmacy dispensary in Isla Vista, and they did continue to speak up, funding local initiatives and resources. So we will keep an eye out on those partnerships. And we're close to finalizing the management assistant role, and so hope to have that done. Friday is our day to finish that this week in hiring. So that's about it for my report.
All right. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for that report. Our future meeting date and future agenda items, the next regular meeting of the board of directors will take place on January 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the community room 970. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Motion by Freeman. Is there a second? Second by Topliff. All right, can I have a roll call?
Richard Brandt,
Yes.
Heeman,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Villar,
Yes.
Topliff,
Yes.
and Deshler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We will see you soon.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.